AI music isn't real. That's the consensus in the comment sections. There is a collective certainty that algorithms are poisoning the purity of human art. Yet, consider the music playing through your headphones every day. You stream songs pieced together by anonymous ghostwriters, engineered in boardrooms, and owned by massive private equity firms. The myth of the solitary genius with a guitar has been heavily manufactured for decades. This chart shows the reality of that system. Look at the massive scale of corporate revenue aggregation compared to the nearly invisible fractional cent line representing what the actual artist gets paid. The industry you listen to every day is already hyperindustrialized. But you still feel something when you listen. You don't know who wrote the hook, and you don't know who owns the master. But when someone else puts words to what you couldn't say yourself, it works. The method of creation never actually mattered to the consumer. It was always about the moment the music meets you. If the mechanics of how a song is made have never bothered our ears, we have to ask why a simple prompt box is causing a cultural panic. The intensity of the backlash coincided exactly with the moment the tools became accessible to everyone. This suggests the concern isn't for the art itself, but for the barriers that used to surround it. Historically, making a record required surviving massive logistical friction. You needed capital, expensive gear, and approval from executives. The people who made it through that gauntlet earned the gatekeeper's privilege, an artificial social status granted simply because they survived the maze. AI offers a bypass to that maze. The panic we're seeing is a reaction to the collapse of the rules dictating who is legally and socially allowed to call themselves a creator. For centuries, the non-creator has had a reliable, socially acceptable shield, the barrier to entry. If you had a melody in your head but nothing published, you had a built-in defense. You could say you didn't have thousands of dollars for studio time, you lacked the right microphones, or you didn't know the right producers in Los Angeles or Nashville. Traditional barriers are solid blocks: gear, network, capital. Generative models crush them all. The studio, players, and engineers are available instantly, for free, in your browser. Look at what remains when the logistics disappear. You are entirely alone with your own ideas, completely exposed. Without the shelter of physical limitations, the truth becomes obvious. Those financial hurdles were never the real reason people didn't make art. They were a convenient mask for a much deeper internal insecurity. There is a story in the book of Matthew about a man who gave his servants valuable resources before leaving on a journey. 2 of them multiplied what they were given. 1 buried his in the dirt. The servant who buried his treasure didn't do it because he lacked resources or opportunity. He had the exact same access as the others. He buried it because he was afraid of what would happen if he tried and failed. Ecclesiastes notes that whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Waiting for the perfect conditions, the right gear, the right time, the right connections, is usually just fear operating with a highly reasonable explanation. Critics assume these new tools offer a magic button. You type a sentence and out pops a masterpiece. But actual creation requires you to listen. You scrap versions, try different styles, and rewrite until the output matches the life you lived. People sit down at the keyboard assuming it will be effortless. They try, then they stop. And they don't stop because the software is glitching. They quit because the mental labor of pulling an idea out of your own head is agonizing. Creating is simply harder than criticizing. The ultimate filter for a true artist is no longer access to a massive recording budget. The filter is your raw willingness to endure the painful friction of the creative process itself. These models do not magically grant you talent, and they don't generate your lived experience. They act as a functional bridge for the expression you already have. This schematic shows exactly what the technology does. It targets the physical wall separating the internal feeling you hold from the tangible output you want to share with the world. When that wall dissolves, you get a direct connection, and that connection terrifies the old guard because their entire identity relied on controlling the toll booth in the middle. The endless debates, the copyright lawsuits, the angry comment sections, it is all a massive collective distraction. We focus on the ethics of the tools so we can avoid taking individual responsibility for our own creative output. Strip away the industry headlines and the ethics of the algorithms. Look at the solitary figure sitting in the room. If you have ever had a story, a feeling, or a song trapped inside you that you didn't know how to get out, your era of historical amnesty has officially expired. You are out of excuses. The question of whether you have the physical capability to create has been permanently resolved. The tools are sitting right in front of you. The focus is no longer on whether you can create. It is on what you choose to do now that you can.